Soros-backed Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is actually indicting my father. So let's be clear, folks. This is like communist level. This is stuff that would make Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, it would make them blush. It's so flagrant, it's so crazed, when even like the radical leftists of the Washington Post are out there saying, it's not really based on facts, it's not really based on the law, it's not really based in reality, but it's 100% based on politics. When your enemies are saying that, it's got to tell you everything you need to know right now about where we are as a country.
Well, that was Donald Trump Jr. there, reacting to the fact that his father has been indicted. News broke this morning that the former president will be charged over hush money payments made to a porn star in the lead up to the 2016 election campaign. A Manhattan grand jury voted to indict the former president on Thursday for his role in the alleged crime. While the exact charges are not yet known, it is believed to be related to a $130,000 payout to porn star Stormy Daniels to ensure her silence about her alleged affair with Mr. Trump. The indictment has also not been made public. It is currently under seal, but could be announced in the coming days. This could mean that Trump is likely to then be arrested on felony charges and taken into custody next week to face arraignment. Now, Donald Trump Jr. was hosting his show Triggered when he went live just 10 minutes after hearing the news. While the former president's son kept most of his show to schedule, he opened with his reaction, calling the indictment communist-level stuff. It's so flagrant, it's so crazed when even like the radical leftists of the Washington Post are out there saying it's not really based on facts. He continues that the indictment is 100% based on politics, and when your enemies are telling you that, it's got to tell you everything you need to know right now about where we are as a country. Donald Trump Jr. also responded to his father's indictment news with a few tweets. He wrote, "This isn't just the radical left weaponizing the government to target their political enemies. This is them weaponizing the government to interfere in the 2024 election to stop Trump. The only solution is to shove it down their throats and put him back in the White House. #MAGA. He continued, "We all know that the rhinos are secretly happy about the indictment, but the fascist left won't stop with Trump. They're power hungry and will do anything to crush their political opponents. If we're ever going to save our country, the entire GOP needs to finally figure that out." His brother Eric Trump then jumped on condemning District Attorney Alvin Bragg, tweeting, "This is what you get for giving a crooked politician $1 million. Alvin Bragg is a Soros puppet." Donald Trump has also made a statement after news came to light, labelling the action evidence of political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. "From the time I came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your President of the United States, the radical left Democrats, the enemy of the hardworking men and women of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement." Donald Trump's former Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney weighed in on his old boss's situation with Sky News' Laura Jays.
I'm still a little bit surprised. I guess I'm not surprised politically, because once this district attorney took it up and started the investigation again, and I'll explain why that's important in a second, he sort of didn't have a choice, because the Democrats, and he is a Democrat, expected him to give an indictment. If he didn't give an indictment, he probably would have lost his next election. But the fact that he took it up again is interesting. Keep in mind, he's the second district attorney to deal with these exact same facts and circumstances. The previous one decided not to charge the president, or to try and charge the president, or to indict the president. So there's always already been one prosecutor, a Democrat prosecutor, look at this and go, no thanks. Keep in mind, as far as I can tell, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, no human being has ever been convicted of what we think Donald Trump is going to be charged with. There was a politician 2 decades ago named John Edwards who was charged with something very similar, but the jury found him not guilty, and a bunch of the other charges were thrown out. So it's a very novel, very new sort of criminal theory that they're trying out almost for the first time on the former president of the United States. And I think the only thing I can add, I heard a little bit of what you folks were talking about as I was sitting here listening. The only thing I can add to that is the piece that is not getting nearly enough attention is that the critical witness here The witness that presented testimony to the grand jury is Michael Cohen, who used to work for Donald Trump. So you would think, oh, that's a pretty good source. No, this is a guy who has gone to prison for lying to banks and lying to Congress. Believe me, if I was ever going to be charged with any crime in my entire life, I would want Michael Cohen to be the key witness against me because he's the least credible person in the country right now. So a bunch of different moving pieces, and the end conclusion has got to be, while politically I'm not surprised, honestly, from a legal standpoint, a practical standpoint, as a citizen, and as you folks know, a sometimes critic of Donald Trump, I can't believe they actually chose to do this.
Yeah, we were talking about these. We're kind of playing it down a couple of weeks ago, saying surely they've got something else. Surely it's not just this, but that is not the case. From what we know so far, you make a really good point about Cohen. But what about Stormy Daniels, who's just told her OnlyFans account, according to Pete Stefanovic here.
I wasn't watching it, by the way.
I don't know how he knows about this, Mick Mulvaney, but anyway, that's a whole nother line of inquiry that will go down at another stage. But look, she said that she's willing to testify. Is that significant?
No, and I will avoid the jokes about the oldest profession, about whether or not that's a credible profession. We'll put that aside, but just it doesn't make any difference, okay? Because whether or not Donald Trump had an affair with this woman is really not relevant to what we think is the charge. Whether or not he paid money to the woman is not relevant. That's not illegal under the American system. Paying hush money to people, paying them to be quiet, is completely legal. Folks do it all of the time. News agencies do it.
So what's the technicality here then, Mick Mulvaney? Remind me of that.
Yeah, it's very strange. So the charge seems to be, again, the indictment hasn't been made public yet and probably won't be until the first Trump hearing, at least if they follow ordinary procedure. But it's been leaked out, and this is what we're guessing at, was that the payment was not accounted for properly for taxes, okay? That is a misdemeanor. However, if that's done in furtherance of a larger crime, then it can be a Class E felony. And if you're wondering how many classes of felony there are, it's about 5, A, B, C, D, and E. So the lowest level of felony, just above a misdemeanor, just above a parking ticket or a speeding ticket, is a Class E felony. And if you marry that tax misdemeanor to a campaign finance violation, maybe you get your Class E felony. That seems to be the charge against Donald Trump. To James's point, look, the things about January 6th are much more serious. The things about the interference with the election, specifically in Georgia, are much more serious, and they go to some serious matters. And you don't have to sort of hold your head sideways and cock one eye to try and look at whether or not there's a crime there. If he did it, that's a major problem. So why they're focusing their attention on this bizarre witch's brew of political charges, I have no idea.
Before we get back to our panel, and we'll go back to Annalise as well in Washington, D.C., Mick Mulvaney, you know the man better than most. You were his chief of staff. How's he likely to react to this? You know, we know how he manipulates the media. We know that he'll try and make this to his advantage electorally in the campaign. But we can't forget that he is approaching 80 years old. He is used to a life of luxury. If he has to sit in a jail cell, it's not going to be easy.
It is. I listen, if he ends up sitting in a jail cell, I can't imagine it's for this. Again, keep in mind, you're going to have witnesses. It's very easy to indict someone. There's a saying in our legal system that you can indict a ham sandwich, right? You could do it all the time. It's not that hard. Convicting someone, which comes at a very high standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, is an entire story altogether. I don't really think he's worried about going to prison. He does worry about his reputation. And my guess is he's not at all happy. He's angry tonight as he gets this. He's throwing stuff around the office, I would expect, and he's going to respond very forcefully. I've not seen him put out a tweet or a whatever they call it, a truth social that he's got out yet, but my guess is to be very much over the top, and he might call for protests.
Yeah, I think so as well. And what kind of effect is that going to have, Mick Mulvaney, given the fragility of America right now?
Yeah, what I think folks aren't realizing is that there may be no protests. Keep in mind, there was a lot of January 6th protesters who, the last time Trump, called for action, they came for action, and many of them went to jail. And they're recognizing that either Trump cannot or will not protect them. So my guess is there'll be some folks who show up who are angry, who protest a little bit, but I don't think you'll see mass protests because as angry as people are, and I'm a little bit angry, and again, I'm a critic of the president, no one wants to go to jail for Donald Trump right now. So I'm not really sure you're going to see massive protests. In fact, I'd be surprised if you were. There'll be small level stuff, but I don't think there'll be a massive protest. And that will say as much about Donald Trump's sort of hold on that extreme right wing of the country than anything else we've seen in the last several months.